Okay, so today on the podcast we have Morgan Hayes, and she was introduced to me through my friend Laura McPhee, who I actually did a podcast with not too long ago. So you can check that out if you haven't yet. It's a pretty good one, and Laura is an inspiring person, and I'm sure she's inspired you, Morgan. So,
Yes.
Morgan, I don't know a whole lot about you. I know that you're well versed in mobility and exercise rehabilitation, breath work, and probably a whole lot of other stuff. So, I'll let you introduce yourself. So, Morgan, who are you? What do you do? And where do you come from?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much first for having me on here. Like you said, my name is Morgan. I am an injury rehabilitation specialist. My background is in athletic training. And then when I graduated, I kind of took a different route and decided I really wanted to help people live a healthier life, just feel more empowered and regain control of their health and teach them how to do that, to become more self-sufficient. So it's just been something I've been very passionate about for about the last 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. And I'm just trying to grow and expand and just grow my impact and just teach more people that you don't have to live in the story that someone told you. Like a diagnosis is not a life sentence. You are able to control your health and change your health, but you just have to decide. You have to educate yourself and then decide that you want to do that. So.
Yeah, that's such a key thing is literally, I was actually just talking about that with somebody today, is how the power in deciding what you want for yourself and setting an intention really goes a long way, because that's the spark, that's going to fuel your action. That's going to be what allows yourself to be around the people who you need to make those transformations in your life. And I
Yes, for
remember
sure.
before we got started, you were telling me how you actually rehabilitated your own body. So could you talk a little bit about that and what you did to do that?
Yeah. Um, I'll try to make this semi short because I can't make it a long story, but
Oh, no worries.
so, okay. Okay. Just
Go
go
with the
with the
flow.
flow.
You got it.
Um, so when I was in high school, I played basketball,
Yeah.
and my junior year, so I was about 16, 17, I was just in the middle of practice. We were walking through plays. I turned a weird way, and who would have known that that was going to cause me 7.5 years of extreme back pain. So yeah, I just had the shooting pain down my legs, into my feet, numbness and tingling every single day. There were bouts where it would flare up, and then it would take me seconds to get up off the floor, which when you think about it, you're like, oh, it takes 5 seconds to get up off the floor. It doesn't really seem that long. And then when you're laying down, when you can jump up in half a second, when it takes you that long,
Yeah.
it's oh, this is there's something going on here. So it made me very grateful for being able to bend over and put my socks on and lay down and stand up regularly.
Yeah,
um
it's amazing how injuries can force you to be grateful for the things that we can take for
yes,
granted.
definitely, for sure. Yeah, it puts a lot of things in perspective for you. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I was in a back brace for the first 2 months that this happened, because when I went to the doctor, I think they gave me the diagnosis that they give pretty much every teenage athletic female, and that was a stress fracture in your low back. And so we went with that for a couple months. Didn't really help. Did physical therapy. That kind of helped. And then throughout the span of 7 years, I got multiple diagnoses, from herniated disc, stress fracture, SI joint dysfunction, um, narrowing of the spine, piriformis syndrome. There were a ton. So I went to physical therapy 3 different times at 3 different clinics. They all sometimes kind of helped, but never really fixed it. I always still had some pain. I could never just sit down for a long period of time or stand up for a long period of time, because my feet would be going numb. And then I tried cortisone shots at the time, and they said it was very promising. So I did the first round, and it didn't do anything. And so I waited maybe a year, and I came back for a second round, and they said because it's 3 series of shots is 1 round.
Yeah.
So they said if the first series didn't work, then they weren't going to do anymore, because I was too young. And this was before I kind of knew about steroid injections and stuff in the body, So I was like, oh, you said it can heal me? Yeah, let's try it. And then when I was 18, I went and met a spine surgeon, and I was just am I going to have to live with this pain for the rest of my life? Because I don't want to. And they basically told me, well, that might not be an option for you to live pain free. You have the back of someone who's 80 and you're 18. So I like at the time I was like, there's no way I can do surgery on my spine. So that's when I graduated high school. I went to college for athletic training, started learning more about the body. And I don't know, one of my friends introduced me to this physical therapist online, and his name's Kelly Starrett. And at the time, he came out with a book called Supple Leopard, which was all about mobility and taking control of your health. And so I bought the book, read the book, like binge watched all of his YouTube videos. And then I started like treating myself as an experiment. And I realized that this intense back pain that no one could heal was literally from my hips being extremely tight, and I didn't have any core strength because for at least for me in high school, we did not have like lifting, you know, it was just, you went to practice, you did your practice and that was it. Like I didn't know how to work out. I had to teach myself through college. And even in college, I didn't really know how to work out because I found that from like things I would find on the internet. But then once I started being around more athletes and seeing how they moved and practice and learning from the strength coaches, I was like, oh, okay. So then I started teaching myself how to strength train along with the mobility work. And within, I want to say a couple months, I was literally pain free. Like I was so used to having back pain that the very few days that I would not be experiencing anything, it would like register to me. And I'm like, wait, like I don't have any pain today. And then that feeling just started to become more and more and more. And then pretty soon it was like, I don't have pain ever. And now when I do have pain, I'm like, oh, I guess I have been a little lazy with like my mobility work, or I did a pretty hard workout yesterday and I'm just feeling fatigued. So I probably need to back off a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I was going to ask, when they gave you that diagnosis and said that you have the back of an 80-year-old, how did you feel in that moment? Like, was that discouraging to you, or did that maybe give you some fuel for the fire to do something about it?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it really, it really like irritated me. I was like, because before I became like more empowered with my health and decided that I am in control of my health, like you look up to a doctor, you know, that's what you're taught is like the doctor knows best. You do what they say, they're the expert. So going in at 18 and asking them like, or telling them like, I don't want this pain for the rest of my life. Like there has to be something we can do. And for them to say that you might, like that's not an option, like you might have this for the rest of your life, I was more like a little pissed off kind of, and kind of just like, what the heck, like this is the best answer you can give me out of everything that you guys do, like this is what you're going to tell me? I literally have my entire life ahead of me. So yeah, I just, obviously that must have been a turning point because 11 years later it still sticks out. Like I was sitting in the office yesterday, you know, so it definitely was like, I'm like, wow, I totally proved that person wrong. And now when I just teach other people, I'm like, a doctor does not know best. They know what they were taught, and that is not prevention, that is maintenance. So that's why they want you, like, that's why they offer the surgery and the medication, because that maintains what you're experiencing. It doesn't go to the root of the problem, prevent why you even had it in the first place, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I don't know if you know this, but I'm a registered massage therapist here in New Brunswick, Canada. And so, you know, you have no idea how many patients I've seen over the years tell me the exact same thing that you went through, that their doctor said that they have the back of an 80-year-old. And some of these people who are telling me this are like 18 years old or
Mm-hmm.
younger or slightly older, whatever. And it's amazing when they start doing massage therapy, which can help get to the root of the problem, because you start to break up all the scar tissue and adhesions and bring
Mm-hmm.
mobility into an area that you once did not have it before. Uh,
Yep.
how profoundly that changes their life. And on top of that, when you start taking care of one thing, all of a sudden you want to start eating a little bit better too. I actually had a client tell me yesterday, and he has severe hip pain, and he said that because since he started to see me, I've been able to help him recover. I've been able to help his muscles, which are in terrible shape, and he says that it's been inspiring him to eat better and do other things in his life that are more positive,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, you feel better in one
A
area.
trickle down effect. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's totally holistic. And I always tell people whenever I have the opportunity that just because you're in pain or even in a crappy situation now does not mean that you're going to be like that forever. And that's where it comes down
Yes.
to setting an intention for yourself and making that decision to become better one way or another. You can make it happen. There's so many different ways. And ultimately, I mean, you said that your pain started to go away and eventually that became your new normal. Well, pain is actually a signal, right? So it's telling us that there's something wrong and we need to do something about it. And most of the time, that signal is telling us to get moving. So like you said, do mobility work and strengthening, because you strengthen the things that are weak and you stretch the things that are shortened. And,
Yes.
you know, so
Exactly. Yeah.
it's kind of funny because all these things are so simple, and it's almost like the medical system that we have today, I mean, sure does some great things, but also can overcomplicate things. And people think that the solution is a lot harder than it actually is. And
Totally.
yeah, it's certainly a lot easier. I mean, I always say we're going to be working hard either way. So we might as well be working hard, finding the solution, working towards it, rather than working against fighting that disease, fighting that pain that you're dealing with, and the, you know, maybe medications that some people might take to deal with it. So
Yes, exactly.
yeah. And yeah, so that's amazing that you were able to recover that from yourself, and now you're able to inspire others. Now, what are some key things that you've found to help you recover? And I understand, like we talked about mobility and strengthening, but one of the things we talked about before this was a little bit of breath work. When did you start incorporating that?
Yeah. So I will say one of the key points to low back pain is tight hip flexors. A lot of people, just because of like old outdated like research, or not even research, just things that someone said once, they used to think that like tight hamstrings cause low back pain, but really it is tight hip flexors. And tight hip flexors normally get tight from us sitting a lot or having poor breathing mechanics. So our hip flexors come in the front of the body and they attach to the spine, like kind of right behind your belly button.
Yeah.
Well, your diaphragm comes down as well. And so when you have poor breathing mechanics and your diaphragm is tight and your hip flexors are tight, you can't fully breathe down into your stomach and expand all the way. And that can also be a precursor to low back pain, but also like any injury, because if we have poor breathing mechanics, we can't get oxygen to like our body, you know, like a lot, like our limbs and everything, they're never fully oxygenated. So you don't have the full range of motion. Your muscles aren't getting all the nutrients that they need. So that, again, like breath work is the foundation to healing ultimately. And I found this, I was taking a strength and conditioning course in 2018, I believe. And at the time, it was funny because the guy who was putting on the course, I was obsessed with his podcast. I had learned all about the mobility and stuff. And now I was like, okay, well, now I'm going to start working more with strength training and teaching people how to like move with heavier weight. So I want to like immerse myself in that knowledge. So then I found him, started listening to his podcast. He had this certification course. I'm like, sweet, I want to go. Turns out that we were supposed to have all of these textbooks and everything with us, like textbooks and DVDs to go over the information that we were learning in this course. And I was like an overachiever in school, like straight A student, was super anal about getting all my work done. And when I realized, I read this email, we're a week out from the course, and I was like, I didn't get any textbooks. I didn't get any DVDs. I started freaking out. At the time I'm reading this email, I'm listening to this podcast that's talking about breath work. And so I just started doing the breath work that they recommended in the podcast. And within minutes, I went from like almost having a panic attack to like, oh, this isn't that bad. Like everything's going to be fine. It's fine. And just like how calm I went from just being like totally freaked out and like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't have the material, to just like, it is not a big deal at all. Like within minutes, I was able to just take control of the situation. And so since then, I just went and immersed myself in breathwork information. And just recently I took a course called Art of Breath, and it teaches you how to control your breath more for a performance aspect. But I've also been using it a lot to teach people how to build the awareness of their breath on a daily basis, just for general lifestyle, not necessarily performance.
Art of Breath. I'm going to include that in the show description there for people. I'm going to check it out myself actually too.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's kind of funny just to go back to the hip flexor thing. Now I actually treated a client today, and he had really tight hip flexors. And for those who don't know, who are watching this video and not listening to it, Hip flexors are in the front of your body. They attach from part of your pelvis to, or sorry, I guess your psoas specifically attaches from a part of your pelvis to basically just at your T11 area right below your spine. So you can imagine, I mean, your spine goes around and then here's your diaphragm where you're doing all the breathing. Now, well, the first thing I did when he came in was I did a diaphragm release because he needs to have that rib expansion in order to properly actually release the psoas. And, that can also cause a lot of, a lot of solutions, I should say, because everything's connected to our breath.
Yes.
And it's amazing how, I think a lot of people, they don't intentionally do it, but we kind of just start to see, and I did it at one point too, so I'm guilty of it. I mean, we grow up, we don't think about breathing, we just do it. And funny enough, babies do it properly, but then we grow up and the stressors and the habits and the posture and all that stuff can lead to poor breathing. And then we kind of just see it as something that we just do. And it's, which it is something that we just do, but it's also a tool that we don't know how to use until we learn it. And it can be a tool to control your nervous system, which can help have a synergistic effect on your mind and your emotions, right? So when you're stressed out and you start doing some deep, slow nasal breathing, all of a sudden that lifts. And I actually first started to learn about breath work myself through Wim Hof. I don't know, you probably heard of Wim Hof. Yeah. So that was like back in I don't even know, 2017. I think Wim Hof wasn't even near as popular as he was now. He was just kind of starting to get heard. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try this. And I started to do his breathing techniques, which is basically just like, and it's just like kind of a intentional hyperventilation. And I was like, wow, like I couldn't believe the tingles in my fingers and the hyperoxygenation of my body. It's like I've never felt like that before. And then all of a sudden I'm able to perform better in my workout, or then of course use that to be able to enter an ice bath or a cold shower, which, and then once you're in there, then you actually have to go into a parasympathetic state, because the intense breathing stimulates your nervous system. And then when you're in the cold water, you want to calm yourself down in that parasympathetic state. And that's where the slow nasal breathing goes into. And I don't think on top of this, like there is a better way to breathe for anybody who's listening. And it is nasal breathing. That's like the ultimate way. If you can breathe through your nose, it will help you tremendously. I mean, especially if you have problems sleeping. There's different ways that you can do that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with everything you were just saying. Like, I first found Wim Hof through Joe Rogan podcast, and I tried that breathing that he does. Like I did a sample of it and it was amazing. Like it's like everything just stops around you, you're just super hyper focused, super calm. It's very cool feeling. But yeah, so the first thing with breath is just building the awareness. And like you were saying, it's so simple, but it's so easily overlooked because people are like, breathing, like, well, yeah, duh, I know how to breathe. Like I'm here and I can breathe. But it's like the first thing we do when we're born, and it's the last thing we do before we die. And so many of us live our entire life not knowing the correct way how to breathe. And so, like I said, step one is just building the awareness. So just stop randomly throughout your day, or if you're listening to this podcast or watching it right now, and just tune into how you're breathing. Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you breathing through your nose? Is it coming into your chest? Are you breathing down into your stomach? And just kind of take note of how you are doing it, because from there, then you can start to build and get better at it and practice it, because it is a skill. We wouldn't just go from never playing basketball to thinking that we're going to go into the NBA and join a team. Like you have to do a lot of practice and get better over time. And it's the same thing with breath work. We have to practice it and become more skilled with it so that we can access its power and potential when we are in a stressed out state, because it doesn't do us any good if we just like know how to do it, but we never like kind of put it to the test, like, yes, you might be really good at breathing, but then if you get in an argument with your significant other, how do you respond? Are you still like getting really mad, really irritated, snapping back at them? Or are you able to realize how you're feeling, take a deep breath, and stay calm and focused and in the moment, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing to go along with that too is when you're bringing awareness to how you're breathing, also pay attention to how you're breathing when you're doing certain things. Like there's this thing,
Yes.
I think the term for it is called screen apnea, and it's like when we're looking on our phones or our computer, whatever we're doing, we can hold our breath, and that's just because we're anticipating something. We're anticipating a notification or whatever we're reading or whatever video we're watching, and that's just a natural human reaction, I guess, is to hold our breath when we anticipate for some reason. But that
Mm-hmm.
is what we should not do, because that's like actually a stress response. So
Yeah.
we can subconsciously smooth that out by intentionally practicing nasal breathing while we're doing those things. Eventually, over time, little by little, it becomes automatic and you don't have to think about it.
Yes.
But awareness is key, and then also, of course, putting it into practice and just trying it
Yeah.
out, just doing it right then and there.
I
And
mean, I can give like your listeners a couple easy examples that they can start incorporating into their
sure, yeah, you should.
daily life if you want.
Yeah, let's do it up.
Okay. So first I will say, because I didn't say this, but how you emphasize the nasal breathing. Like nasal breathing is what stimulates our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. That's basically like the part of the nervous system that we want to try to reach throughout the day because of our daily life. So we're always in a sympathetic state, which is a stressed out state. And our body cannot tell the difference between stress. Like we as humans categorize stress into like, well, this is workout stress. So that's a good stress. Well, now I'm in traffic and that's road rage stress. Well, now I'm going to work with my coworker. So that's a different type of stress. But our body just sees stress as stress, whether it's good or bad. So how breathing throughout the day through your nose is very important to just try to keep yourself in a more parasympathetic state. As soon as you open your mouth, it elicits a stress response, which is why I like to really emphasize the nasal breath, because some people will breathe in through their nose and then exhale through their mouth. But when you open your mouth, it elicits that stress response. So that would be step one, just getting used to doing the full nasal inhale, nasal exhale. So once you build that awareness, I'll just go over a couple different ones. So box breathing, that's the first one that I found. It's a cadence breath, which just means it's an even inhale, even exhale. And we also add the holds in there. This one is a little bit more advanced because of the hold, but because it's the first one I learned, it's the one that's closest to my heart. So I'm going to teach you guys. So it's just a 1-1-1-1 ratio. So if we have a 4-second inhale, you're going to take a deep breath in for 4 seconds, and then you hold at the top for 4 seconds, and you take a breath out for 4 seconds, and then you hold at the bottom for 4 seconds. And 5 cycles or 5 boxes of that is 1 full round. So I normally recommend people start with a 3-second. When I'm doing holds, it'll be like a 3-second box or 4-second box. And if you can get through those 5 cycles, then that's when you know that you can add another second to that box. So if that's too much and you don't like doing the holds, then I recommend just a cadence breath. And that's just tuning in, putting one hand on your chest, one hand on your stomach, focusing on really breathing down into your pelvic floor, into your stomach, allowing the sides of your stomach to expand. And that's a 1-to-1 ratio, inhale to exhale. And you can work up to I would start with probably 4 or 5 seconds, inhale and exhale, but I've worked up to 10, 15-second inhales and exhales. I try to see what's the least amount of breaths I can get in a minute. So those 2 are great, just to start, and just to, when you do notice yourself feeling like a little overwhelmed, or you just want to relax, you're about to go to sleep and you want to have a deeper sleep, or you're just waking up and you're lying in bed and you want to get some oxygen to your muscles. Like those are great examples just to try out and see how your body responds to them.
Yeah, and just to give somebody extra motivation to do box breathing, that's actually what the Navy SEALs do. They train to do that in states of stress, whether they're like in the cold ocean or in a stressful war zone or something like that. So it really does help bring in that parasympathetic response and chill you right out. And or if you're honestly, even if you're taking like a ice bath and do crazy stuff like me, or that helps a lot too. And maybe I should, do you have another
Yeah, I have
technique?
tons.
Okay, sure. Give another one, then I'll share my nasal story.
Okay. So I mean, I can do more of I'll do a stressor one and then one to calm yourself down. So
Sounds
you kind of
good.
mentioned this earlier with the Wim Hof, the hyperventilation.
Yeah.
But so you can use that as like a pre-workout or in the morning if you are feeling like kind of blah and you just need to like wake yourself up a little bit, that hyperventilation breath, which is just explaining it a little bit more for your listeners, is a full inhale through your nose and then you're just letting go of the exhale. So it's like
Yeah.
one full inhale, half the exhale, and you would do 20 to 30 of those. And with what I've learned through Art of Breath, after you do the 20 or 30, then you hold the exhale. And I know it's different because Wim Hof will hold the inhale. And the only difference between holding the inhale and holding the exhale is the amount of carbon dioxide in your body. And carbon dioxide is what elicits that stress response in the body. So when you blow all your air out and hold, you don't have as much oxygen in your body. So the carbon dioxide rises much faster. So you get to that point, that panic point, a little quicker. But it also teaches you how to control it more, because if you can keep doing this and get used to the exhale hold and you're aware of that feeling and you're like, okay, well, I can only hold it for 5 seconds today, but I'll try it tomorrow. And then you get to tomorrow and you're like, oh, I held it for 7 seconds. And then maybe in a week, you're up to like 30 seconds. So it's just a good way to, it's a good measuring tool to have, to where you can see how your body is handling the stress, the carbon dioxide in your body.
Yeah.
And like with Wim Hof, when you inhale, you have more oxygen when you do the inhale hold, you have more oxygen in the body. So it takes longer for the carbon dioxide to rise. So you kind of get that calm, like cool feeling. You get to hang out there for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and the carbon dioxide actually allows the oxygen to just flood into the cells too, because I mean that's actually part of the purpose of the Wim Hof breathing method, is that you flood your body with oxygen hyperoxidization through the breathing, and then you hold your breath, and that creates the carbon dioxide. Then all of a sudden, bam, the oxygen just floods your cells. And the way I actually do Wim Hof, I don't know if it's the proper method or not, but the way I learned is do 20 to 30, or some people even do 40 breaths, and then you actually let out naturally the last breath, and then you hold as long as you can, and then you do another deep breath in, and then you hold that inhale, and then for as long as you can, and then you let go, and then you repeat it two or like one or two more times. So I guess there's different ways of doing it. So the point is of actually just doing it and finding a way that works for you. Even if like you're just getting started, even if you just do 10 breaths just to try it, you're still going to feel something. But yeah, try to aim for that 20 to 30 mark.
Yeah, so it's called a step up protocol. And it's something, when I first took the Art of Breath course, I was doing it every day. And it kind of combines all of the three: the cadence breath, the hyperventilation, and the exhale hold. And you start, so for beginners, you would start with a 3-second inhale, 3-second exhale, and you do that 5 rounds. And then after that, you go into 15 superventilation breaths. And then you blow out all of your air on that 15th breath, and you hold the exhale for 30 seconds. So that's round 1. Round 2 is a 4-second inhale, 4-second exhale. You do that 5 times. Then you go into 20 superventilation breaths. You blow out all your air on that 20th breath, and you hold for 30 seconds. And then round 3 is 5-second inhale and exhale 5 times. 25 superventilation breaths, blow out all of your air, and hold for 30 seconds. And I invite your listeners, or if you're watching this, to try that out for a week. Just do it in the morning. That one takes about 5 minutes, and just notice how you feel throughout the rest of your day. Like whether you have more energy, less energy, more calm, more focused. Like just notice how you feel if you do that every day for 1 week.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing those techniques. Do you have any others you want to share today, or up to you?
I will say with COVID going on and people wearing masks, the one, like, well, signs and symptoms with shortness of breath, because I know there have been like studies and stuff, and I don't want to get into it that much, but studies have come, or not studies, but people have been posting like wearing a mask doesn't affect your breath, but there are studies that have come out. There's research that shows when you have a mask on and you breathe out on that next inhale, you are breathing back in some of that carbon dioxide. So you do get the shortness of breath. You do get the increased heart rate. You feel more stressed, maybe more anxiety ridden, even just from having something over your face, like you get that little bit of anxiety that you wouldn't normally have. Maybe you're more irritable throughout the day. So something that you can practice, because if you are feeling those symptoms, it just means that your body has a poor carbon dioxide tolerance, which in layman's terms means that your body handles stress poorly. So how you can practice that is I recommend going on a walk for about 5 minutes, or if you do a lot of chores around the house while you're doing dishes or folding laundry or something, you take 5 deep breaths in and out of your nose, blow out all of your air on that 5th breath, and you just hold the exhale for as long as you can. And then you repeat. Once you have to take that next breath in, take your 5 breaths, blow out all of your air, hold the exhale, and then just keep repeating that, like I said, for 5 minutes if you're going on a walk. I like to count my steps and see, I got to 20 steps on this exhale hold. Let's see if I can get to 21 on the next one, And that just gives your body a chance to build up the carbon dioxide tolerance so that when you wear the mask, hopefully you don't feel like as much of those stress, like shortness of breath, increased heart rate feelings,
Yeah, no, those are really good suggestions. Honestly, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What I was going to add to like the COVID thing is I have to wear masks at work, but I know that some people are going to have a lot harder of a time, and especially those who have like a blocked nasal passageway. And we just talked about how the importance of nasal breathing. And if you're already doing mouth breathing on top of a mask, it's not only is it gonna make it harder to nasal breathe through a mask if you have like a congestion of any sort, but it's also gonna make it easier to just mouth breathe. And we really want to nasal breathe. So I mean, some people really, honestly, some people might call it an excuse, but they honestly just can't wear a mask because they need to breathe a little bit better, because breath is important. I think it's overlooked. I mean, COVID is a disease that affects your breath. So breath is the most important thing. I mean, if you can live for months without food, weeks without water if you train, and then you can only live like seconds without oxygen. So I mean, that's why breath is so important. And just I wanted to share a little story along with some tips since we're talking about breathing. When I was like, I don't even know, I think I was like 14 years old, I had enlarged adenoids and tonsils, and I ended up getting them removed. Now, to make a long story short, I had 3 emergency surgeries after the initial one because the wound came undone and I had a lot of bleeding, and they had to cauterize it and get it back together. That being said, when I was a kid, I had problems breathing because of the enlarged adenoids and tonsils, and also my diet. I think it was causing some congestion at the time, and some other inflammation in my body, which contributed to that. And then years go by, heals up. Even recently, I mean, I began making changes in my own life. And for those who don't know, who are listening to this, I lost 115 pounds. That began in the fall of 2017, so just about 3 years ago. And it took me about probably 10 months or whatever, if I had to say it, to lose the 115 pounds. And along with that, I had a lot of problems. I had asthma, I had autoimmune conditions, I had some mental health problems I was medicated for, I had a bunch of other stuff going on, as you can imagine, that I ended up reversing by changing my life holistically, my mind, my body, all these different practices I started incorporating, surrounding myself with friends and family. Anyways, one of the things that I've actually still been working on recently is my breath and my nasal breathing, because I think when I had those emergency surgeries, there must be some scar tissue in my sinus somewhere that causes not only extra rhinosinusitis, so congestion and like little bit of blockages in my sinus, but also I even feel it in my ear sometimes. And I'm a musician too, so I don't like that either. But I've recently have been putting more mindfulness into it. So what I've been doing before bed is you get those nasal strips that look really funny along your nose, and there's no scent on them. I actually thought there was at first, but until I used it, it actually like opens up your nasal passageway. And you can go a step further, and you can even put mouth tape or some type of tape that'll stick to your mouth. Just, you don't need a big piece, just a little piece over your lips to remind yourself to breathe through your nose. And you can even start doing, like, I mean, there's a neti pot you can do in the morning and at night when you wake up and before bed. And then you can even do like steam. You can inhale steam, like just fill a pot with filtered water. You can put some sea salt in it or whatever to make sure it's sterile and everything. And put a towel over your head and just inhale the steam and kind of nebulize it. And if you do that before bed, even like get a bottle of eucalyptus and inhale that through your nose before bed, that will help you breathe through your nose a lot better. It's helped tremendously with me because of those blockages. I mean, I can breathe through my nose all day, but when I go to bed, it's that, I mean, your fluids are moving all in your head and stuff, and you're compressing your sinuses a little bit. So if there's any little bit of inflammation or congestion, or for my case, I think it's scar tissue blocking it, it's going to be that much worse when you're sleeping. And so those tips that I just gave can really help a lot. And I mean, a lot of people struggle with sleep problems. And part of those sleep problems is because they're mouth breathers. Because if you breathe through your mouth, even if you're the perfect mouth breather, you're still going to lack oxygen to your brain. When you breathe through your nose, you're getting more oxygen into you. You're breathing properly. And I don't know if you know this, but it actually, the studies have shown that it actually affects the structure of your jaw better. And they say that people with like those stronger looking jaws is because they practice nasal breathing. And so it's kind of funny. It's stuff I've only recently been learning, but I find it just like fascinating, and it totally makes sense. And since I've been doing it, I mean, I think I must have had some apnea episodes, because I'm a guy, like I live a pretty healthy lifestyle, and I mean, there's no reason why I should be tired, because usually I'm full of energy. But the nights I have bad sleeps when I'm breathing through my mouth, holy crap, I cannot function the next day. Like I'm totally useless. So this has been helping me a lot. And if anybody has problems with this, and this will help you for sure too. So anyway.
And speaking with the mouth breathing, once you do build that awareness and you do nasal breathe, that's also like some really good feedback from your body. If you notice throughout the day that you're mouth breathing more than normal, it can kind of be a sign that like, hey, I need some rest, you know, like on days where I like really overdo it, and the next day, like in the morning, if I'm teaching a session or something, and I notice that I'm just like having to like catch that deep breath and go like through my mouth, like more often than I normally would, I'm like, man, I'm like a lot more tired than what I thought I was, you know, because we can sometimes trick our mind and our body to feel good, especially like if I want to work out. Sometimes, like most of the time, I've learned to listen to my body, but sometimes I'll just like suck it up and push through the workout. But I notice on days where I have to like take those deep breaths in my mouth more often, I'm like, yeah, I can't do that today. Like this is my body telling me like I need to rest. So little fun fact.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good idea. Just bringing awareness to your body is so important, whether it's through breathing or something you're eating or when you're working out, and not learning what to push through and what to not push through. Because sometimes when you're working out, you don't want to push through it, and you don't want to. I guess maybe we could talk a little bit about injuries now, because this ties along with that. You can be working out in the gym, and I mean, I dislocated my shoulder about, I don't know, 12 times if I had to guess. And a couple of those times was in the gym. And when I think back, it was because, I mean, obviously I developed my, the muscles around my shoulder, and they were strong. I've been going to the gym for a while, and I was lifting heavy overhead dumbbell press, and there's just that one day, like some days were not as strong as others. And I thought that I could do, I think it was like 60-pound dumbbells, just dumbbell press, just like I did a few days before when I had a lot more food. And I think even like a little, I was taking creatine at the time too, which makes a big difference. So I tried to lift these over my head, and I was like, oh no, I can do it. And my mind got ahead of what my body was telling me. because there
Mm-hmm.
was in the back of my mind, it was like, no, don't do it, just put it down. And I pushed, and of course, pop, my shoulder
Oof.
comes out. Now,
Yeah.
now we can talk about, okay, my shoulder is dislocated. For those who have not had a shoulder dislocation or a knee injury, which I've also had, a complete ACL tear and tears of different ligaments on both knees. Shoulder dislocation is one of the most painful things that you could possibly experience. And I've heard women who have given birth that compare it to that, if not worse. They've told me this from their mouths. And so, which I can believe because I was in the most severe pain ever. Now, first things first, what helps women who are giving birth give birth? What do they do in the prenatal classes? They teach breathing. If you talk to a girl who has given birth and done the breathing techniques, she will tell you they help. So, of course, and I wasn't even as well versed in breathing back then, but I knew a little bit. So now, every time my shoulder dislocates, I try to remain calm. And what do? I just breathe super calmly. Like I do that deep nasal breathing. And I'm just like, I kind of just accept that, okay, my shoulder's dislocated. This really sucks. I don't want to go to the hospital. If I resist, if I'm hyper, if I'm anxious, it's going to be a lot harder to get in because my muscles are going to prevent it from going back into the joint socket.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just remain calm. I breathe and I just put it back in myself, which I don't recommend doing at home, by the way, for just a disclaimer here. Go to the hospital. Anyway, I did that and made it much easier. So breathing through pain, breathing through your workouts too. Now, do you want to add anything about breathing through pain and breathing through workouts?
So with breathing through like pain, slowing your exhale will definitely help because that helps slow that sympathetic response. Gives your parasympathetic response a chance to kind of take over.
Yeah.
So yeah, the deep breathing is definitely key. With workouts though, I mean, I breathe pretty much all nasally through my workouts. The program that I have been doing for the last couple months is all based on your breath. So there are certain times where you want to work up to where you're breathing through your mouth, but then when you're done, you bring it back down to nasal breathing as fast as you can because that helps your body recover quicker and it helps you stay more focused and you're able to do more. And it also like, I mean, if you're using a heavy weight on something and your muscles are burning, when you can like tune into your breath, which is basically what yoga is, you know, you're able to hold that position or do those reps more focused and you don't give like, I don't know if this makes sense, but you don't give away your power to your thoughts, you know, because you're able to just like stay present, do what you're doing because you're focusing on your breath. So yeah, breath work through with exercise it's a game changer. I teach all my clients how to breathe through their nose. I have like the quietest clients when they work out. And I totally take pride in that.
I have a friend I used to work with, and he listens to classical music when he works out because he finds it helps him breathe better. So
yeah, seriously, music can be a huge thing. Sometimes if I want music for the background noise, I'll play like slower music, and then sometimes I'll play faster music when I need it to amp me up. And I'll kind of pay attention to what my heart rate's like when I'm doing even a similar workout, you know, like music has a really big effect on that.
oh, it does for sure. Another fun fact I actually learned on the Ben Greenfield podcast the other day is I guess the ancient Spartan warriors, how they would train is they would get them to run for miles with water in their mouth so that it would force them to breathe through their nose. And because I guess when you breathe through your nose through exercise and even through an intense exercise, unless you absolutely pretty much uncontrollably breathe through your mouth, it produces that nitric oxide, you know, increases that nitric oxide production. I mean, people take nitric oxide supplements, so you can do that naturally just through breathing through your nose.
Yep.
So I guess to tie into injury rehabilitation a little bit, because we talked about injuries and breathing through them. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like what you do to rehabilitate your injuries and what other people could do? Like, do you have any experience helping anybody with a shoulder dislocation rehabilitation or a knee injury or anything like that? Or?
Yeah, definitely. So I love working with people with knees and like knee injuries. Normally I do a lot of posterior chain strengthening. I've learned So if I have a client that comes to me with low back pain or pretty much anything from like your trunk, like any of that, first thing I go over is breath work, just learning how, because you need to relax the system, you need to loosen up the muscles and just get them breathing down into their stomach. Because when you're a chest breather, that can affect, can give you upper back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, because of all the muscles up around your neck and shoulder, just always constantly tense, So when we learn to breathe into our stomach and relax that, then your body, you get a better feel of where your injury is actually coming from, So that's if someone comes to me, we do breath work first. But for knees, I love doing posterior chain strengthening. And posterior chain is basically the backside of your body, because we live in a very anterior chain world with walking. We're very linear. Yes. So everything's always in front of us.
Yeah.
Arms are always in front. Yes. Driving, you're sitting a lot.
Yeah, your knees are in front, everything.
Yes. Yeah. So the front of you is most likely very tight. And like we said earlier, if it's tight, you need to stretch it. If it's weak, you need to strengthen it. So normally when you have a tight muscle, the opposite muscle, so if your hip flexors are tight, that probably means your glutes are pretty weak. So we want to mobilize the front of the body and then strengthen the back of the body. And strengthening the back of the body, because most people are very weak in their posterior chain, it does wonders for people with knees, for people with back pain, for people with shoulder pain. I primarily focus on posterior chain strengthening, and then I'll add in, if I'm working with a male client, I'll add in just some push-up variations or bench press variations, just to get that, because that's just guys like to do that. And then for women, I'll just more overhead press, just to get all of the motions in, a vertical press, a horizontal press. But most of the time it's a lot of focus on pulling exercises, just to go. My focus is, when people come to me, they think that they're just going through a workout, but really we're trying to counteract all of your movement from the day, all of the sitting that you do, all the driving that you do, texting on your phone, sitting at a desk, whatever it is, we're trying to counterbalance that. And that's with strengthening the backside of your body and mobilizing the front. So.
Oh, exactly. The yin and the yang, you gotta reverse what you're doing. And essentially that's what I do as a massage therapist. You're reversing this chronic problems that they've developed over the years. And the most successful patients, like my motor vehicle accident patient that I've been working on for a while, she does really well. She's at her prime when she is going for massage therapy, chiropractor sometimes too, she incorporates. And most importantly, she's doing stretching and strengthening. That's the key right there, because I think because yoga is so popular these days, and people are starting to learn that, okay, stretching is good, but so is strengthening too. That actually prevents pain. And so when she's strengthening her shoulders, some of the pain that she has is because she's weak. Her muscles can't handle it. They get fatigued easy, and they get inflamed, and they just can't handle it. So when they're stronger, they can handle it. You feel much better. So it's certainly some inspiration to get.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of, sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, you got it. Go ahead.
Okay. Shoulder dislocations. I did have a guy. I get a lot of people that, I shouldn't say a lot, but a handful of people that come to me with chronic pain or chronic injuries. They've been through the list of physical therapy. They've seen the doctors. They've been told that they probably need surgery somewhere down the line, but they also were I don't want surgery. There has to be a different way. And then somehow we meet and I work with them, and within a month, 2 months, whatever, they've totally reversed any of the pain they've been experiencing, shoulder dislocations. I did have a guy, and he's had chronic dislocations. I forget, I think he's had over 20 something dislocations. It's crazy in a couple years. And he has his own automobile shop, so he's working on cars and stuff all the time. And it would just sometimes get to the point, he owns a shop with his dad, that if he was working and his shoulder came out, his dad would just have to come and put it back in for him, because it happened so much. And he went to physical therapy for it, and this is where he was a little nervous to work with me because he went to physical therapy. The very first session, the physical therapist basically told him, because my client was like, I don't feel comfortable doing this exercise. It feels weird on my shoulder. And the therapist was like, well, no pain, no gain. And then he dislocated his shoulder in the session. So he was
Oh
like
man.
very apprehensive to come work with me.
Yeah.
But also one thing with me being like empathic, I kind of let my sessions be intuitively led, you know? So with him, I did like obviously what I know, but then what I felt like he needed. And within 2 months, he had no dislocations while working with me. And it's been about a year since we've done a session. We still keep in contact and stuff, but he hasn't had a shoulder dislocation since. No pain. He's not getting surgery. Like,
So,
it's
so you
crazy.
guys are probably doing mobility and strengthening work, I assume.
We did a lot of, well, we didn't do mobility because with the dislocations, you don't want, like, I didn't want to mobilize that joint because it's already hypermobile, but we did a
Yeah.
lot of just strengthening, but strengthening of like muscles that you wouldn't normally think of, you know, like your serratus anterior, which is down here along your rib cage. A
Yeah.
lot of upper back. Again, we did a lot of upper back, a lot of diagonal patterns, which I learned in college, but like coming up, over, and then down. So if my arm is reaching up, like I'm picking something up off a high shelf and then coming down across my body, like I'm grabbing something out of my pocket, doing a lot of that. And then the other way where I'm reaching up and over my body and then coming down to the same side of my body. A lot of banded work. And yeah, it almost gets to the point where a couple sessions in, I'm like, wait, why did you come see me again? Because you're not experiencing any pain, nor have you, like in our few sessions. But they're like, no, it's just everything that we're doing here. I feel great. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. He's putting the work in. He's deciding to feel better, and
Yes.
he's making it
And
happen.
yes. And that's a huge thing is like, you have to decide. Cause I also get people that come to me and like, they think I'm a magician, you know, like I'm going to change them just because they came to me, like they're going to feel better. And I'm like, you have to put in the work. Like the people that see the most results are the ones that decide that they don't like where they're at. They have the ability to change, and then they put in the work and they change.
Yeah, I've told people straight up, and if anybody's listening right now, here's a little bit of motivation for you. If there's something in your life that you don't like, whether it's a health condition, an injury, um, a situation, or whatever, there exists the possibility of you changing that. All you have to do is decide what you want for yourself and believe that you can make it happen, and it will happen,
Mm-hmm.
because you'll bring yourself to the right people. You'll just accept nothing else as a result. And believe me, like, if you want to heal of a condition, for example, go look online. There's going to be like hundreds and maybe even thousands of people who have healed from that even rare condition. So you can learn from what they did to get through it. But otherwise, you don't have to accept the way you are, because people have
Yep.
done it and they had no advantages over us. You know, they're in the same boat as us. You know, we kind of, especially if you live in if North America, I mean, you have a lot of freedom to have access to information and resources to help make that happen. So if you want to change something, it is out there. You just got to go get it. You know, it's like the analogy, you know, if you want a pear, it's on the tree. You just got to go walk towards it. And if you don't know where the tree is, you just ask somebody. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just,
I mean, I think that like sums up the entire episode.
yeah, seriously. Yeah. But everything is so simple,
Yes.
and we just
We like to
complicate it.
overcomplicate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because people, like what we do, like we coach, inspire, teach people to better their life in whatever way. And what I've learned through digging myself out of my own well is how easy it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And the hardest part was the mental thing that I had to overcome. And as soon as you see that it's not so hard, it becomes a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I really appreciate you talking to me today. We really brushed on a lot of really good subjects. One thing that I actually do want to say before we completely wrap this up is, since we talked a lot, pretty much everything about breath work, do you know much about holding your breath during exercises at all? Like, I know there's certain things that people
I
do.
I do some breath holds like during warm-ups to help warm up your pulmonary system.
Yeah.
So that's what, like, I'll do my workout, and then before the conditioning aspect, I'll do a circuit where you do so however many exercises or whatever, and then there's a breath hold incorporated with it. And that can sometimes be an inhale hold or an exhale hold. But essentially the intention with that is to warm up your pulmonary system so that when you get into the conditioning, you don't feel that that lag. You know how there's always like that 3 or 4 minute lag, like if you were to go out on a run, to where you feel very uncomfortable and then all of a sudden you're like, you hit your groove, and that's just because your oxygen has gotten through like to your body now, and everything's kind of on the same page. Well, the pulmonary warm up helps with that. I'm not sure if that's kind of what you mean with the breath holds, but
Yeah, that's one thing for sure. That's awesome. I actually didn't know that, so thanks.
mm-hmm.
One thing that I do and learn with breath holds is if you finish, like if you do your workout and you finish the last 2 sets and the last three reps of each of those 2 sets by holding your breath, that will increase the little bit of hypertrophy in the muscle and
Interesting.
and which basically, long story short, it can help your recovery and muscle growth and stimulate more human growth hormone and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. So it's just like a little
Super
biohack,
interesting.
simple
Yeah.
biohack that people do. It's almost like, it restricts the blood flow and the oxygen, right? So you can imagine if you put your body through intentional stress, your body adapts and you end up getting the benefits from it if you do it
Mm-hmm.
balanced and properly. And similar concept is the blood flow restriction bands, and that restricts the blood flow so that like you only use that for a couple sets for a few reps or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
that can almost does the same thing. So just to wrap up the breath holding exercises, and there's some, like, you can go, obviously if you're going to hold your breath during exercise, don't try this at home, disclaimer, like because like, I mean, if you don't do it right, you can really hurt yourself, especially.
Yes.
So if you're going to start off, like, research it. And I started off doing like just like push-ups, because if you do fall, at least you're not far off the ground or whatever.
Yeah.
Not going to faint. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I feel like we kind of covered everything. I mean, obviously just the biggest thing is like, we can give everyone this information, but it's just, what are they going to do with it? You just have to decide that you want to change and be consistent with your effort, because we all have the ability to change our health, to change any condition that we have. But you just have to decide that you want to do it and then put forth the work to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Amen. We'll end it on that. Thank you so much for coming on. And where can people find you?
No, thank you. Sorry, I just had a call come through. Thank you for having me on so much. I so appreciate this. I'm very grateful for Laura for introducing us. You can find me. I do have a business page on Facebook. It's under Morgan Hayes Training. And on Instagram, I am realistically fit _. So, and with both pages, I just like to post a lot of random workout tips, mobility hacks, breathwork hacks, motivational stuff. So like kind of like a holistic fitness page, and it's realistic.
Yeah, I love the name, Realistically Fit. It's so
Thank
fitting.
you.
So realistic.
Yes.
And do you offer courses online too?
So right now I wouldn't say I offer like courses that run all the time. I do have workout, like strength training programs that I run. They're normally 6 to 8 weeks.
That's what
yes. And so I will always advertise those on my Facebook page. I offer one-on-one training with clients, and that can be more of like an immersive type thing where we do the weekly calls. I do individual monthly programming for them. It's a 3-month program. Like I said, there's individual programming. We do weekly calls, and just kind of, I send them any mobility breathwork stuff that will help them with wherever they're at in their life right now. And then I just offer monthly individualized programming, and that's just, you can reach out, say, hey, these are my goals and everything, and I just shoot you the workout. It's not as detailed or involved as the one-on-one coaching. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna include all those links in the show description. So thank you so much
Awesome.
for coming on, and have an awesome
Yeah,
day.
thank you. Thank you so much. You too.
Yeah, you're very welcome.